You're the brass section, right? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjano Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjano Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjano Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Radha Giridhari ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Samaveda Bhakti Vinani ki Gaura Premanandi Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paraviraj ki Jai Jai Shodhara Shishi Mahad His Divine Grace Bhai Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paraviraj ki Jai Jai Shodhara Shishi Mahad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Sarhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, CC Guru and Sri Gauranga. There you go, sir. Thank you, Bhakti. Krishna. So. So this morning's verse, fourth canto, chapter 31, text 23. So we'll read 23 and then I think 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskitam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'm a little warm. Is it a little stuffy in here? Is it just me? I'm stuffy. Just a little warm. See, all these books here could be a boring class, so probably it's good some air. Like that. Okay. Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyas Cha Bhagavat Kataha Sravyayitva Brahmalokam Yayao Swayambhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti. Excuse me. You get an A+ for enthusiasm. Okay. Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyasya Bhagavat Kataha Shravyatva Brahmalokam Yayao Swayambhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyasya Bhagavat Kataha Shravyatva Brahmalokam Tva Yayao Swayambhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Kataha Shravyayitva Brahmalokam Yayao Swayambhuvo Munihi. Anyone like to chant? Uvacha Rajan Shravya Brahmalokam Yao Swayam Bhavo Murihi. Synonyms. Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya said, Iti, thus, Prachetasa, the Prachetas, Rajan, O king, Anya, others, Cha, also, Bhagavat Kata, topics about the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravya Itva, after instructing, Brahmalokam, to Brahmaloka. Yayau, went back. Swayambhuva, the son of Lord Brahma. Munihi, the great sage. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear King Vidura, Sri Narada, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. Purport. One has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. The Prachetas got this opportunity from the great sage Narada, who told them of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Om Agyantimarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unminitam Ninatai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Prabhu Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakti Brinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Banchika Padrubhashta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, by your good wishes and blessings, I'll try to say a few things. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear King Vidura, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. So, the Bhagavatam is filled with discussions between devotees of the Lord and the Supreme Lord and his devotees. It's a book of discussions exclusively the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, I think it's this right here. This one. There are a few verses I'd like to bring up, and it's one of the purports. I'll try to find it. But Prabhupada refers to the fact that the Bhagavatam, devotees of the Lord are always speaking about the glories of the Lord, and that's the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the Amala Purana. It has nothing to do with anything of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Those are the four big things, Purusharthas in this material world. Purushartha means goals. Dharma, to be religious. That's kind of taken a back seat in Kali Yuga for most people, but people understood in more advanced cultures that by being religious you can get ahead, right? By being religious and virtuous, you can get ahead. And it's not just brownie points with the gentleman upstairs, but society in general, your relationships with other people will go much nicer if everyone is virtuous and has good qualities and is religious and pious and so on. Just society runs a lot more smoothly and it's much more shanti or peaceful. So Dharma, Artha, we have to work very, very hard, to achieve our goals. Things just don't fall out of the sky. You have to work very, very hard. And there's personal selfishness, and then there's also extended selfishness. That's the material world. In other words, I may work very hard for myself. Who cares about anyone else? You step on other people to get ahead. But one may say, no, I work very, very hard for my family. I work very, very hard for my community. Or maybe someone say, a philanthropist, I work very hard for the underprivileged or this or that. The unfortunate part there is, where's Krishna in the equation sometimes? There's no Krishna. And there's no spirituality. It's just working very hard in this material world to achieve material comforts, really. That's what it boils down to, facilities and comforts. So artha, dharma, artha, kama, enjoying life. However that's defined, people want to enjoy. Basically that means we want to enjoy our mind and our senses. And then moksha, that's referring to just we're frustrated with this material world, we want to get out. And that's referring to the concept devoid of Krishna consciousness. We want to put an end to all our suffering. It's still self-centered. I am suffering, I want to get out of my suffering. Moksha. I want to be liberated from this miserable condition, and I can understand to some extent I'll never be happy in this material world. So the Bhagavatam, it says this is called cheating religion, any type of scripture that encourages people in these 4 different paths as the ultimate. It's cheating them. It's cheating because it isn't. Devotional service to Krishna is. So that's what the Bhagavatam is about. And the purport probably makes this, it's a short purport, but one has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. And the Prachetas had that opportunity. And then Narada Muni afterwards, he just went back to Brahmaloka. He went to preach somewhere else. That's Narada Muni. He just doesn't stop preaching. He just preaches. So that's that's our life. Hearing from the great devotees of the Lord in many different ways. That's what devotees do. There's 2 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. I think whenever you talk about spiritual master or guru, everyone thinks about a verse in the 4th chapter. Which verse is that? Yeah. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariparashnena shevaya upadakshite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Krishna says to Arjuna, if you want to know the truth, approach a spiritual master and inquire from him submissively, render service unto him, and the self-realized souls, they can impart knowledge unto you because tattvadarshina, they've seen the truth, they're seeing the truth. So this is the whole secret of spiritual life, and Prabhupada hammers this home again and again and again, because the tendency in Kali Yuga is everyone wants to be very, very independent, right? Don't tell me what to do. That T-shirt would sell millions of. We should manufacture that. Don't tell me what to do. We'd probably become millionaires. We could support the temple because that's the mood. Don't tell me what to do. Who are you to tell me what to do? And so the idea of being submissive to the guru, it's just not very popular. But that's the process. And in this particular verse, there's 3 different things. You're approaching the spiritual master, and then this pariprashnena. Pari means all around. Prashnena means asking. So thoroughly inquiring about the subject of Krishna consciousness. And sevaya, that means rendering service. Now these 2 things have to be there in order for the spiritual master to be inclined, or to the extent they're there, the spiritual master is inclined to impart transcendental knowledge. Because the whole path of Krishna consciousness is humble service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that mood has to be there. There has to be 2 things. There has to be the spiritual master who's tattvadarshina, who's seeing the truth, but the disciple also has to have some qualification. To the extent the disciple has the qualification of being submissive and rendering service, humble service, then that transmission becomes very easy. Becomes very, very easy. It says you can't learn anything. So what is that? I think that they say you can't learn anything if you. There's 3 words that completely. What's the word? Completely block you from learning anything. You know what those are? I know everything. I know everything. So there's no room. There's just no room. So, and in our literatures, of course, we know about Sanatana Goswami, how he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that I'm such a fool. I'm such a fool. People call me Pandit, very, very learned, and he was extremely learned, many different languages, and he was very, very learned in the Bhagavatam. You know, when he quit, very dangerous. You know, he quit his service for the Nawab, you know, and escaped. His life was on the line. But, you know, when he didn't want to go into work anymore. He just wanted to stay home and hear the Bhagavatam. And he and his brother, Rupa Goswami, were known to be very, very great scholars and very, very learned. But he's saying, people call me a Pandit and all that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not. He said, I don't even know who I am, Kayami, and why am I suffering in this material world, the threefold miseries. He's very, very humble. Very, very humble. So that has to be the mood. And if that mood is there, then the spiritual master feels very, very inclined to impart transcendental knowledge. So there has to be this development of humility. We don't walk in that door right there, right? Being full of submission and humility. Have you ever seen anyone walk in the first time in that door and just be floating in an ocean of humility and submissiveness? Okay. Because who's trained to be like that? Who's trained? So the spiritual master and his representatives, they're very, very kind in giving us a lifestyle which teaches us to be submissive and humble. Now, there's nothing wrong with being submissive and humble to the appropriate authorities. It's a catastrophe if you're submissive and humble to Durnidesha, right? Like that. Or what is that also in that verse by Govinda Das? I've uselessly served bad masters. Is that? You know. Yeah, that song. Do you know off the top of your head? No. This is the Bhajahure Mana, Srinandanandana. He says, I've uselessly served Sevanu, Bipala, Sevanu, Kripa Durjana. Kripa Durjana. People have no kripa, no mercy. Do you ever work for someone who's had no mercy? Just not kind, never increase the pay, just work you to death? You're shaking your head a lot. Okay, so he's like he's shaking his head like this. So, so kripa durjana. People are sevanu. I work so hard, but I've been serving kripa durjana. Chapalu sukalabalajire, just for some flickering happiness. So that's not good. We have to find the right master. But in Krishna conscious circles, the bona fide spiritual master, and I mean that's one reason we're reluctant to be humble and to be submissive, because we've been cheated so many times. So yes.
While blindly serving cunning people, steeped in sin and search of fleeting pleasures of the skin.
Whoa. Is that your poetic rendition?
Song into it. I didn't think. While blindly serving cunning, people steeped in sin in search of fleeting pleasures of the skin.
Wow. Okay. So that's the kindness of the spiritual master. And I was listening to one lecture a few years ago by Bhakti Vijayapurna Maharaj, and he was speaking about there's some verses in the Vedas, Gurukula. He was talking about the Gurukula system and so on. And there's graduation from Gurukula. The boy goes at a young age, and then usually around 20, 25 or whatever, it's time, It's like I remember Jim Rohn said that, why do they make the desk so small in third grade?
The desks?
Yeah, the desk in third grade. Why do they make them so small? Because you're not supposed to stay there. Right? You're supposed to keep moving, getting older. And so after a certain time, you can move on from the Gurukula. All right, so there are tests. And he was making the point that obviously there is the scholastic test. Do you learn the Vedas? You're able to recite verses. Do you know the philosophy? That's important. You've been studying for so many years. But he said the real thing was character. The real test was the character, not so much it had much more weight than your ability to speak philosophy and so on. And one story he told in the Vedas was this one disciple, the guru said this was his test. He said, okay. He said, there's some problem out in the rice field, because you see the rice fields have they're all boarded in with dikes of, piled up earth to keep the water in there for the rice to grow. So he said, there's been a broken dike and so on. Can you go take care of it? So he said, okay. So the disciple went out there, and it was just like this. It was this broken area. There's nothing to do. So he laid down and became the dike. So the day went on. The Guru said, "Where's Bhakti Chris? Where is he? Where'd he go?" And the disciples went out looking for him, and he's lying there. He's the dike. Like that, and the spiritual master embraced him. He said, very humble. He just, there's no way he could quickly pile everything, so he just lied there all day long and to keep the rice. And that's one story they give, and he successfully passed the test of the Guru. He was humble enough to just become a rice dike, like that, and just lie there and just keep the water from emptying out. Like that. There's another long story about this one brahmachari who was sent out. His test was, and he went begging and so on, and he actually started, he'd take milk from someone's house. He came back at night, and the Guru said, why are you taking, the milk? And you're not supposed to do that. And different things, all the way down to practically nothing. And the point is, the Guru is seeing that he's still interested in his sense gratification, and he finally got the message. So these two stories are bringing up the point that it's character. It's character building, like living in the ashram with other devotees. You have to become tolerant. These are all wonderful qualities. Where else can you develop them unless you're living in the association of aspiring devotees and so on? And it's just the nature of our lifestyles. We have to become humble and submissive, to spiritual authorities. So, if it, what's it called? Grate? Is that the word? Grates you the wrong way, or grates your nerves? Yeah. That's what it is. Our false ego gets bruised. Does anyone ever have a bruised false ego? Like daily, right? Right, living in the ashram. That's good. Like that. The ego's good. That's when you become more advanced. So we should look forward to this. Just like when you're sick, even though you know it's going to hurt, you look forward to getting better. You look forward to the medicine. Oh, I know it's going to be bitter. He's going to do this, but I have to get better. Just like Janardhan. I think he's watching this from above. He's got all this dental stuff going on. That's unpleasant, isn't it? But he's got to do it. Bring back that cheery smile of his, right? So he's just got to do it. It's very, very difficult and unpleasant and painful, but you do it. So, but that's the trade-off, if you want to call it that. That's the exchange between the disciple and the spiritual master. The spiritual master is very, very willing to not only instruct, but to great devotees actually imbibe us with transcendental Krishna consciousness. This is the words of the great devotees are touched with the saffron mercy particles of the Lord's lotus feet. So when they speak something not mystical, something Krishna conscious happens. We actually, just in their presence, feel very Krishna conscious. But there has to be something from us. We have, just like if you want to plant something, you may have a very good seed, you may have water, you may have a good sunlight and all that, but you need good soil, right? So if the soil is not broken up and fertilized and so on, even though you plant a very good seed and water and sunlight, nothing's going to happen. So the examples given, our hearts have to be hard, like hard soil. So you got to break it up, you got to fertilize it, and get it ready to receive the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotional service. And that's the process of devotional service. Our daily activities and this humility and submissiveness are extremely important. You have that verse you wanted to, is that what it is?
No, I'm just thinking about the word of Bible.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We have to imbibe it. He's Giving. Imparting. Okay. Why? We have a few more minutes. I'll just jump to this. Today is the Panihati festival. Sometimes it's called the Danda Mahotsava. Danda, punishment. In this particular pastime, I don't think I have to read from it, but Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, he was a son of a millionaire. Son of a millionaire. So much facility. And only son. And his father and his uncle were actually devotees in the sense, on a certain level. They actually supported much of the Brahminical population there in Bengal at that time, or West Bengal, wherever it was. And very, very charitable and so on. But that was their only son, his only son, and he wanted him to grow up to take over the family business. He had created such a huge empire and so on. But Raghunath Das was not interested, and he wanted to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. And there's a long history there of him making different attempts and so on. But and his father didn't really want him to, although a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't want his son to go off and be a renunciant with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But when he heard that Nityananda Prabhu was in the area, in Panihati, he convinced his father it wasn't too far. So you just go for the day and see Nityananda, the great Nityananda Prabhu. So when he approached Lord Nityananda, Lord Nityananda was sitting with his devotees under this big, big banyan tree and so on, and enjoying the nature and so on. Everyone's gathered around, his intimate associates. And then the devotees noticed Raghunath Das from a distance and told Nityananda Prabhu, oh, there's Raghunath Das. And immediately he paying his obeisances and so on. And then Lord Nityananda said, oh, you're a thief. Call him a thief. He said, you're a thief. Come here. I have to punish you. Now, I was reading somewhere, I don't know if it was an article by Chaitanya Charan or Satyaraj. Why did he call him a thief? He called him a thief, this is according to this article, because he was approaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly instead of through Nityananda, who's the guru. So he said, you can't do that. So come here. That was the implication, one of the implications of this pastime, is you have to go through Nityananda, Balaram, the Adi Guru. So he placed his feet upon his head and so on. And he told him, your punishment is you got to have a big festival here. Now, that time of the year is the hottest time of the year. Was it just after monsoons or something like that, or before the beginning of the monsoons? Very, very hot. So what's the menu? All this cooling food, the yogurt mixed with flat rice and different things, which are very, very good for that time of year. And, of course, he had unlimited resources, so he just started hundreds and hundreds of calling all these different merchants with their pots and Brahmins and making all these, and more, and whole villages were coming and just feeding everyone. And said there was no room for anyone to sit, so devotees were sitting in the water. A lot of Brahmins and having their 2 pots of different kinds of the chipped rice, this kind of rice, that kind of mixed with yogurt, mixed with kheer, the whole description given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, after this pastime was over, Raghunath Das and Nityananda had an exchange, and in that exchange, I think I have it marked right here, because we're talking, the whole thing is about guru and spiritual master imparting Krishna consciousness, and it's right here. So afterwards, because the one of the proofs that Lord Nityananda had extended great mercy to Raghunatha Dasa Goswami was because this festival became so ecstatic that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself appeared. And the 2 of them were walking through the crowd and taking different devotees' rice right from their pots and eating it and pushing it into each other's mouths. Only certain devotees could see this. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, by the mercy of Nityananda, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could see it also. So that's a sign he had received the mercy. But it says here, let's see, what verse do I want to start at? I think it's 127. This is Anjalila 6th chapter, verse 127. Raghunath Das went there and worshipped Lord Nityananda's lotus feet. Through Raghava Pandit, he submitted his desire. I am the lowest of men, the most sinful, fallen, and condemned. Nevertheless, I desire to attain shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon, I have tried my best many times, but I have never been successful. Every time I tried to go away and give up my home relationships, my father and mother unfortunately kept me bound. No one can attain the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without your mercy, but if you are merciful, even the lowest of men can attain the shelter at his lotus feet. Although I am unfit and greatly afraid to submit this plea, I nevertheless request you, sir, to be especially merciful toward me by granting me shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Placing your feet on my head, give me the benediction that I may achieve the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without difficulty. I pray for this benediction. After hearing this appeal by Raghunath Das, Lord Nityananda Prabhu smiled and told all the devotees, Raghunath Das' standard of material happiness is equal to that of Indra, the king of heaven. We're skipping ahead here to 138. Then Lord Nityananda Prabhu called Raghunath Das near him, placed his lotus feet upon Raghunath Das's head and began to speak. My dear Raghunath Das, he said, since you arranged the feast on the bank of the Ganges, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came here just to show you his mercy. By his causeless mercy, he ate the chipped rice and milk. Then after seeing the dancing of the devotees at night, he took his supper. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaurahari, came here personally to deliver you. Now, rest assured that all the impediments meant for your bondage are gone. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will accept you and place you under the charge of his secretary, Sub Damodar. You will thus become one of the most confidential internal servants and will attain the shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being assured of all of this, return to your own home. Very soon, without impediments, you will attain the shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he has to request all the devotees to bless him also. So you see, he understood. I've been trying to attain the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but now I understand. Please, you, Nityananda Prabhu, please give me that blessing that I can, join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, yes, don't worry, it will all be done. So it's one of the main lessons from this particular pastime of the Danda Mahotsava. And right after that, he was able to escape. There was a transcendental trickery, and he got away. And then joined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So there's a few comments on the purport. We can end here. If there's anyone like to add to it or make any comments?
Just one note about that escape scene, which is very amazing. He actually had to tell a little bit of a lie to his initiating guru. Was it Yadunandanacharya? Yeah. And escape, and he walked for 14 days or 11 days? How many? 12 days. And he ate like 3 of those days or so. I mean, he hardly ate anything. He was so fixed, and he arrived there. And there's so much description of his progressive renunciation in Puri, with Lord Chaitanya, one after another, which I won't get into. But it's a wonderful lesson, wonderful story you can meditate on. Do they still have the thing in Laguna? I guess not now because of the pandemic, but it's
right.
Yeah, in Laguna Beach
Yeah,
they have a big festival at usual times. Hopefully,
they're going to
have it. Oh, great.
Okay.
Something I found interesting, he didn't directly speak to Nityananda, yes, Raghava
Through
Pandit.
Raghava
In the
Pandit.
same way, he wouldn't directly speak to Lord Chaitanya. What a humble position, asking someone you would consider senior to place his plea before their lordships.
Deveda Prabhu, can I ask you to give class for me on Tuesday? Not to speak directly, but you could give class for me. That's not humility, just laziness. So you can turn me down. You can turn me down on that one. What was I just going to say? Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, we were just talking about him not eating. In his later days, he practically was eating nothing. In fact, it says that after... Yes. He was just eating a little bit of buttermilk, a little cup, and then after the second, nothing. And I was reading one description about the Panihati festival, even to this day. One of the preparations is a little tiny, leaf cup with buttermilk, just to remember Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, because that's what he was taking, a little leaf cup with buttermilk every once in a while. That was in his later days. That's all he would eat. That's all he would eat. He was so absorbed in feelings of separation in his devotional service. So we can end here. All glories to Sri.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
May I?
Please. Why did you wait so long?
Dharmasetu Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your indispensable class. Prabhu, actually I have two questions. The first one is as follows. Why is it that you were not there calling the Zoomers for the chanting of the verse?
Well, that's not a question of me. That's our IT person. So Tapas will answer that for you.
There is a delay.
Because
Delay. If you are going to chant, then people won't be able to follow you because the Zoom call has some delay.
Okay, Tapas Prabhu, thank you. My second question is as follows. In relation to the verse you chose for today, I must say the following. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the verse you chose for today is related in some way, and correct me if I'm wrong, to the difference between Vapu and Vani. Because here we see that Narada Muni, after ending his instructions to the Prachetas, he went back to his father's place, Lord Brahma. And while doing that, he left behind him his instructions to the Prachetas to use. So my question is as follows. Why is it that I often hear from the international community of devotees that Vani is more important than Vapu? What is the reason for Vani being more important than Vapu?
This will be the topic for tomorrow's class. Well, there are different things as far as the difference or Vani being more important than Vapu. One thing is the Vapu will not always be there, right? You not always be able. Vani will be, but Vapu isn't, in the sense that you'll not always get personal association of the devotees who are speaking, the spiritual master, and so on, but the instructions are always there. And what is the value of Vapu if you're not taking instruction? You know, probably sometimes give the example, the fly on the lap. He's very, very close to the guru. You know, the Bhagavatam class, a fly may land on the lap of the guru speaking, but what is the fly actually appreciating? In fact, maybe just be bothering. But the instruction, that's what's important. The spiritual master, that's the transmission of Krishna consciousness, is the Vani. You know, Prabhupada in the second canto brings us out that this is the process. He said there's one disciple and guru in India who were very, very famous, and the spiritual master touched the disciple as if there was some kind of spiritual electric transmission, and then he fainted. And when he woke up, he said he now was an empty vessel, and he had transferred all of his spirituality to his disciple. So, this is not the process of transmitting Krishna consciousness. It's the Vani. That's what that is. You know, what the spiritual master is giving. I mean, it's not that Vapu is unimportant or irrelevant. It's ecstatic and wonderful, but the real thing is the instructions. That was the verse. Tad vidhi pranipatena. It doesn't say, if you want to learn the truth, hang out with the spiritual master. Just kind of be around him. No. Tad pranipatena, inquire submissively, render service. Right? That surrender. And then, he'll tell you. He'll explain to you the science of Krishna consciousness. That's what it's all about. There's so much could be said on this.
Yeah, everything you said was right, but in ISKCON especially, Prabhupada emphasized that. If you hear this from the devotees, it's because Prabhupada said it. You know, if you want to know me, read my books. I put everything into my books. You know, and when in the fourth canto actually here there's a purport there where he talks about Vani and Bapu, and when Prabhupada was getting ready to disappear, devotees would take shelter of that purport and realize, oh, well, it can always associate with Prabhupada through his words. You know, the spiritual master imparts everything. He said, I've given everything in my books, and they're always accessible. So that's why the Vani is more important than the Bapu.
And that's why book distribution is pushed. It's Prabhupada's Vani going all over the world. So yeah, I hope that's a good enough answer for today.
Yes, better than good enough.
It'll keep you going for 24 hours until tomorrow's class.
Wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.